Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG, a podcast, a vodcast, with a panel of longtime Mac Apple users who want to discuss the most relevant apps and services to age-seasoned users. I'm Marty, an Apple enthusiast and podcaster. I'm a 67-year-old age-seasoned user who has collected a great group of friends to talk about Apple and the Apple use by seasoned citizens. Let's see who we have with us tonight.
Hello, I'm Chris. I'm 77. I got my first Mac in November 1984 during the test drive, a 128K Mac. Spent the next 9 years with the user groups in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then I had a chance to work for Apple for 8.5 years in Austin, Campbell, and Cupertino, and later finished my career with a major university in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I have been retired for the last 8 years in Tucson, Arizona, and been a happy member of the Tucson Macintosh user group ever since meeting Bob Wood on jury duty a few years back. And that's another story. I'm currently using an M1 Mac Mini, an iPhone 16 Pro Max, 9th generation iPad, and various Apple services.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm from Bay Village, Ohio, on the chilly southern shore of Lake Erie. I'm 72 and have been a computer nerd since high school. After more than 3 decades using a variety of computers, I started settling into one corner of the cyberverse, all things Apple, which is exactly where I've been for over 20 years now.
I'm Gary. I'll be 88 in July. I'm on the east side of Cleveland in a group with Marty and Peter, Apple group. And as I age, I do think about, quote, the seasoned, that I'm simplifying my life. I'm primarily only using an Apple iPhone 16 and a Mac Mini, along with a watch. Marty or Bob?
Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Wood from Tucson. I am a 70-something Mac user, 70-something-year-old Mac user. I have been involved in Macintosh user groups, not only in Tucson, but also in Milwaukee, and am looking forward to learning what everybody has to talk about in tonight's session.
Well, tonight we're going to talk about legacy, and it's more than just an app, and maybe we'll go a little bit more into end-of-life planning and how you can do that digitally. Maybe not this episode, but maybe in a future episode. But we'll touch a little bit onto that tonight. But Apple Legacy is a unique service that Apple provides that is a way for you to have set up in case of your passing or in case of your inability to manage your devices anymore. It's your Apple ID can be assigned to another person that you assign, that you set up. So what you want to do is create a legacy contact, and we have websites and also some video that will be available as part of the show notes for this show, both on the podcast and also on the vodcast on YouTube, if you're watching or want to look for us on YouTube. The show notes will be there. The links will be there to all of these articles. They're pretty good in giving you some background and how to set it up. But if you want to do it, you can do it on your iPhone. Very simple. You open settings on your iPhone. You tap your name at the top. You go to password and security. And then you tap legacy contact. And in that case, you can add a legacy contact. Someone who will be able to get information from your phone through Apple, once it's approved from Apple, get information through your phone from your phone. And so it could be a relative, it could be a son or a daughter or someone in your lineage that you want to have access to the primarily the photos and contacts and such and calendars that are on your phone. So you follow the prompts and it sets up the legacy contact. They will get a key that will allow them. So they have to have the access key and provide a copy of your death certificate to request access to your data. Before legacy, I don't know. Do you guys have any stories before legacy of how people had to wrestle with this?
There were a lot of nightmare situations where, a friend is called in to hack his old friend's computer and try to get to the information because, the spouse had no clue. It wasn't a happy place.
Yeah, and they can access the information with a legacy contact. They can access it for a couple of years. It's not forever and ever. But I've just heard of people trying to get access to their passing spouse's phone or content or contacts, and it's just
It's impossible, Marty.
Yeah.
With my sister who passed away, I gave her a phone and a Mac and an Air, and unfortunately, there were no passwords, and there was no way they wouldn't even wipe because they weren't sure that I really owned the computer and the phone to just wipe it clean. So I'm just stuck with them. I don't. So far, I'm sure there's no data that's important to me from my sister, but Apple would not provide me any way to get into the phone or the laptop.
Yeah. Well, legacy changes that. I mean, it doesn't give you all the stuff. And we'll talk about some news that came out yesterday about sharing media and sharing other things that you don't generally have access through legacy. But it's an important step. And so I'm just going to toss the question out. Why would you want to do this? Is this important to you to be able to have a legacy contact?
Well, I think primarily, your spouse may need it to access bank accounts and that sort of thing. And then on the softer side of the whole thing, I've got about 300 Kindle books in my Kindle library, and I'd sure like somebody to get those. There's a lot of money in that. So, that's sort of the full spectrum from the necessary to the nice to have kind of thing. And how do we do that? How do we plan for when? And I'm the guy that needs to do all of this, actually. So, I haven't set any of this up yet, but it looks like we've got more tools, and I'm glad we're exploring it.
Yeah. I know, Gary, you mentioned the difficulty with your sister. Is there anything else you can add to that in terms of the importance?
Well, I've really been fortunate. As I mentioned once before, I have 2 kids, son in Nashville in his 50s and a daughter 2 years older in Seattle. And what I've done after my wife passed away in September of 21, I've included them as joint owners of everything. So I'm really, and as I said earlier, I've tried to simplify things. So Jack and Susan have access to everything in Ohio. You can transfer the property on your death to your son. Mm-hmm. Automobiles are the same. Things have become easier. So even though I'll look at the legacy, and I've given my son Jack, and I have he can get into my Mac Mini. Get into any of my computers with the password, and then You can also, I've used 1Password for a number of years and just keep it going. And I use that for just information that I want to keep. And then with having either Zoom or FaceTime, there's a lot you can do with, quote, say like your legacy to show them where the things are.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I am with the legacy.
Yeah. Peter?
Well, all this critical information people have talked about, along with physical assets and memorabilia, all the artifacts of our lives are rapidly going digital. And I just think back in the day, I used to print digital photos to make them safe. And now I'm so much more likely to take a digital photo of a printed one to capture it. And so I want multiple ways to pass things on to my wife and daughter who have, my passwords and the keys to my password vaults and all of that kind of stuff. But to have every possible way of accessing everything is the key. And so I think the way Apple's done legacy is a good way to go.
Bob, ideas from you?
All of these discussion about digital legacy and the digital stuff is very, very important. But there are also physical things that are important to us as well. And I would like to encourage our listeners to take a photo inventory of those things. Well, this thing should go to Cousin Joe, and this thing should go to Cousin Chris, and so forth. And so if you take the digital photos and you make notes with them, those are important things as well. And I also keep a lot of this information in 1Password as well. And and my wife uses 1Password, and I have a shared vault in 1Password where I have passwords to allow her to get into all of my devices as well. So I see 1Password as an important place to keep this stuff, or whatever digital asset manager you use.
Yeah. I got fascinated by legacy when it first cropped up. And I think I've assigned my son to my legacy. And part of that is he's a little bit more tech savvy. My daughter is pretty tech savvy. You can't get out of my household as a child without having some tech skills. But Will would be the one who would be able to crack through all of this. And so he's my current legacy, but I'm, from reading these articles and looking at the stuff, I guess I can assign multiple legacies to have access. And so I think Hannah will probably get that assignment. She doesn't like to talk about death things or about her parents dying or anything like that. And she doesn't like it. And she just doesn't want to think about it. But somebody has to. So, Aileen and I have been more serious talking about this kind of stuff. And there's no guarantee who's going to go first. Is it going to be her or is it going to be me? And in which case, it's important to me that someone has access to the digital stuff that I have. And in particular, things that they want to keep, people they'd want to contact, that sort of stuff. So that's why it's kind of important to me, and I've set it up at least with my son a while ago. Now, of course, he has to have the password, and he has to keep the password, and the document has to be available with him for the password. And you have to. That's why I'm doing two, because Hannah will keep it. Will go. Oh, yeah, I'll figure it out. But it's important for me to kind of have that legacy. So I've set it up. I don't know if anybody else has played with this or attempted to set it up yet.
Setting up legacy?
Yeah.
I have set it up and I've set it up so that my wife and daughter are legacy contacts, as are my two sisters.
Wow.
Oh.
So that's, and you're thinking of, you're thinking the importance of doing that for the kind of work that you've done, the kind of things that you left behind, Peter. What?
Well, I think I've really done a little. I think that is sort of a bare minimum because, like Chris was saying, I think a lot about the digital content that I own. And it's not automatically because someone's a legacy that they can get my Kindle books. However, I have, every time I get a Kindle book or an Audible book or a digital music, I make an archive copy on my little disk farm that I have. And I also diligently remove any digital rights management software from around those books. So the Kindle books, there's a copy also that is an EPUB or a PDF to make it more accessible to someone I would want to leave it to. Now, I know that Amazon and Kindle think that they've given me a license, and when I die, that license expires, and they don't agree that it's like a book, like all the books and CDs and VHS and DVDs that I have. But I think of it that way, and I've tried to structure what I have that way, but I have not done enough. When we got this assignment for this show, I immediately started using file tags for the first time. So I started tagging files by type, text, audio, video, interactive, and category, math or education, literature, entertainment, and with people's names on them, So this is going to go to my nephew, Ryan. He's a music head. He's going to, any collectible music, he's the guy it should go to, and other things I might say, this should go to, a particular, I've given journals I have to libraries, including Kent State, where Marty is, and they were happy to receive, 10 years of an audio journal, and I'm sure that some of the other things I have that are, kind of collectible in that way, there are probably places, be it the Internet Archive or somewhere else, that would love to have them.
Yeah, I think when you're talking, Peter, I'm thinking, when my kids were young, we shot VHS tape of them doing stuff, and we knew that wasn't going to hang on for a long time. And we converted some of that to digital video. But, if I don't have that access set up for people to easily get it, that digital video might as well be lost. And so thinking of those types of memorabilia that has my kid dancing when he's 5 years old, was VHS. Now it's digital somewhere, and then being able to pass that on to his own embarrassment. It's part of the legacy of our family in a lot of ways. So I think about that now, and I guess Legacy app doesn't handle all of that, but it handles a part of that. And then thinking more about end of life planning. I want to share a book that was brought up in our Mac user group in Northeast Ohio, and the title just drives me crazy in a good way. This is a book called "Sorry, It's Your Problem Now Because I'm Dead," and it is a end-of-life planner, and it's not expensive. It comes in a fairly large print and in large size, which I think it's maybe thinking of its audience in that way. We have the link for this in the show notes if you want to take a look at it. I really would like something digital, not analog. I don't want to have to write a lot, but there is some stuff in here that as I go through it, it's sort of like, yeah, put this in Excel spreadsheet and just collect all of this in a digital thing that I can pass on to my son and my daughter. Lots of information and lots of things that trigger my thinking, oh, yeah, I got that. I probably should write that down somewhere. or at least have it in a digital version. So,
Well, I would suggest opening a couple Apple Notes, which is something else I did this morning as a result of this, because I kind of realized that I needed a kick in the rear end, and this show may be it. But as I described that organizational system, I realized there needs to be a guide. So as I create a tag, I've created a smart search, and in the Apple Note, a way to go to it and saying, you want to see these files that I've tagged this way? Here's how you do it. And so it's the kind of thing you can keep adding to and do a little bit at a time, even as you're going through a photo album or something like that. I mean, it's like, I almost feel like a little kid. Like this morning, I figured out a good use for tags. And of course, tags, a file can have multiple tags, and it does seem to me to be something that's useful. I mean, I have used them once or twice before when I'm on a project and I wander around my hard drive and tag things. And instead of collecting them and copying and making another one that's in another folder, and now I have two of all of that stuff, I just have a smart search that goes to those files. And that was my first use of it. But now I think this is a marvelous use for it.
yeah, and and Bob, talked about the usefulness of notes, and I didn't even think of notes. But the thing is, you can also share notes. So if I'm dead and I can't get to my computer, that shared note to my son will have all the data in it that they want in his notes. And giving that Apple we see as a pretty secure platform, Notes seems like another good way to pass it on. There are some articles. I'll go through a few of these and then take some more comments. But there's a big bit of news that came out yesterday that I think we want to talk a little bit about. But there are some articles in the Observer. Under the business section was Planning Death Has Gone Digital, Inside Apps That Prepare for Your Loss. And the article is rather lengthy article. It talks about death planning processes like Safe Beyond and Cake. Lantern is an app that you can put the data in. Empathy is one. So there are some apps that are out there or online services that are out there that you can start to do this digitally if you want to. And then this I thought was really pretty cool. If you don't want to buy Sorry I'm Dead, we by the way, we left that deliberately on the coffee table so my daughter, when she comes over, will see it. That will really upset her. But if you don't want to buy that, there is Life File Digital Estate Planning. This is Death with Dignity. And it gives you all sorts of links to tips on what you can and should put in and save within your information in terms of accounts. And then making decisions about your digital assets, and then naming a digital executor. So here's an article on how to add a legacy contact for your Apple account. So it goes through all the different ways in which you can do it. As I mentioned, through the iPhone or iPad or on your Mac, you can do it. A good general support article from Apple. This one is how to set up an Apple ID legacy contact on your iPhone. Comes out of the Final Step out of UK. And then a Simply Mac article about setting up a legacy contact feature, what you need to know and how to set it up. But I really wanted to get to this. This is from our friend, and you all know him because you've seen him at various Mac user groups, and he has his own service that is a great service. Is Dan Wasik, who there's a link to a video that he does here that talks about putting in legacy and how to do legacy contacts. So if you want to see it instead of read it, Dan will take you through that 5-minute video, and it will go through there. And probably at the end of the video, there's some information on how to support him and the work that he does, or it's probably in the show notes here. He has a service that, I don't know, what is it? $30 a year, $40 a year. Gary, I know Gary signed up for it.
Yeah.
I just let it roll over because he's got such great stuff that is well worth it. And he's a great guy. If you have questions, you can contact him. So I ran into that and I thought, I got to give Dan a little prop here. He's been so good with that. So you can find those links. And then finally, a Apple support how to request access to a deceased family member's account. This is for folks on the who are still here when we're gone, because they have that, that information and legacy contact access key. And you can go to the site, and I think it's Digital Legacy. I don't know, the link is in here. And put in the key, and that starts you with the process, and put in a copy of the death certificate. And then it gives you ways to delete Apple accounts and to request access with a court order or by other legal documentation, part of estate planning in that process. So it's a good article that gets around the other end of it, what people do when they, like my son will do someday. He's going to have to know the steps he has to take to be able to have access to this. So any other comments before we get to this ID thing? Yeah.
Well, just quickly, because I'm involved also in a memorial society, and I think the critical thing here, it's common sense, is this communication with who, your spouse, your kids, or whoever even you're going to give something to, so they know what's coming down the road. And then perhaps, especially if you cross maybe 75, 80 threshold, you're aware that life, you're near the end. I mean, I'm aware, but I'm alive. And I just think you have to be realistic with what's going on and what you want to do, but let somebody know this is what my intention are. Are you okay with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those, the book is one way of doing it. There are, but really kind of having those tough conversations. And it will be tough conversations. I mean, I know what I want to happen with me and my passing. My wife knows what, I know what she wants, and she knows what I want. But eventually it also has to be communicated to the kids who are going to roll most of that out, or your significant other or family member who are going to manage that.
The other things, I didn't know I knew legacy, but I didn't know what was going to come up, and you guys don't know what I'm going to say now. But I do have some books, and Marty and Peter know I've been trying to get the listeners or the viewers to contact us so we know who's out there. But I did see Marty talk about the Pod Talk Network, where to go to find us and contact us. I'm looking at it. So if somebody emails you and you pass it on to me, I'd be glad to send them this book as a reward. It's not a reward, but it's a very good book, similar to one you showed at Amazon. But,
and this is for end-of-life planning?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So let's talk about the news that came out yesterday, which I think was great for end-of-life planning. We talked about it a little bit on Mac Voices last night because the article just came out yesterday afternoon. And frankly, the decision to do it and Apple's endorsement of it just happened yesterday. They put out a support document, which is within the article, or the links are within the article of the one that we have. You can get to the support document that Apple put together to say this is how you do this if you want to do this. And it's basically, how do you combine Apple ID accounts? I mentioned last night on the show that I had one when I first started, and nobody could figure this out, and I think I figured it out. I had one that was tied to my .Mac account and Mac.com account. And that was when I was purchasing things through iTunes. And it was at some point they said, Apple sent me an email and said, you have to change your account email address. And it might have been when it opened up to a lot of other product, when it wasn't just iTunes. But then I was required to use a different email. I didn't purchase a lot. I think I could pull some stuff over, but it didn't get everything. But I still had 2 Apple IDs. So my second, I want to say Apple ID, but my second account was my Gmail account. And so I've got software I've purchased on my .Mac, and software I've purchased, most of my stuff has been on my Gmail account. So the idea that I can combine those as multiple IDs is pretty exciting. I know a lot of people are real excited about it. Anybody want to comment on that?
I've got 2 Apple IDs. I'd be real excited about combining them. Yeah, I had it when I was working. I had a separate ID because I was using a university purchase card for things like the developer conference and kind of stuff like that I went to. And of course, in retrospect, I wish I'd never done that, because I've called Apple, probably 3 or 4 times over the last 10 years. And of course, they never knew what to do. So it looks like we finally got a way to do that, and that's exciting.
Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot as Chris. I had a business I owned. I still have half a dozen or more things that I bought on that account of great software that never has charged for an upgrade in 20 years or so, I think. PCalc is one of them. I don't remember some of the others. But when I go to get a new phone, I always have to put in my old password and log in. I mean, it's a little annoying. It's not terrible. But I do like the idea that before I pass, I can take everything I've bought from Apple, which is a lot of music and videos and some software, and merge my account with my daughter's, and then she has it all. I mean, I don't quite have the facility I would love, which is to say, she doesn't want any of the jazz, that should go to, my niece, but it's better than where we're at right now. I can't pick things that I've bought and have them go different places, which is what I really like.
Yeah, or just make a bunch of Apple ID accounts and just merge all of the stuff with all of it, and then delete the parts that you don't want that account to go. This was what was exciting for me, because I am a movie fan. I did a minor as an undergrad in aesthetic English, which is basically watch movies. And last night I was watching North by Northwest, and I've got a copy of that digitally. And as new movies come out, I purchase a lot of movies. And I'm like, when I pass on, there's thousands of dollars of movies that my kids should have watched when I told them to watch it. And it would be nice if I could pass this content on to them. And that would probably go to Will, because Will has the movie archive. They're all part of the family plan that I have, so they can access it now. The other option is just give them my Apple ID and they can just log in that way and get it that way. And my legacy of Apple ID lives on forever. But the idea that you can combine accounts that way, and hopefully, I'm not sure the article is really clear on it, that you can combine the accounts outside of who you are. So if I want to leave them to my son, even though he's part of my family, I can leave it to his Apple ID, and then he can deal with the family account that my nephew's on and my niece is on and my brother-in-law's on, and we've got a good size of family that are on, 5 or 6 that are on the Apple shared family plan. So,
Well, I thought of a workaround that has a fatal flaw, but it's humorous. Every Apple purchase you create a new ID for, and then you can merge that particular item with whoever you want.
yeah, if Apple will even let you create that many IDs, who knows? Bob, any thoughts about this merging?
Yeah, I have a question. You have 2 Apple ID accounts, account A and account B. When you merge them, does one of the accounts go away, or can I access everything on account B that was on account A and everything on account A that was on account B?
Good question.
I didn't read it super carefully. I think one of them goes away.
Yeah, I
okay.
think they're going to be merging one into the other.
But all
I've
the
only got
content
one.
all the content is in the one that you're keeping, I'd assume.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. From both of the IDs then become under one. You've only got
Marty,
one,
this
Bob?
is sounding.
I've only got one.
Yeah.
I was going to say this is sounding like a topic that we could revisit maybe quarterly or, 3 times a year, because it sounds like we're moving into a more flexible frame of mind in terms of this legacy stuff with these latest moves from Apple. So we may have more news in another 3-4 months.
Yeah. Any final words from folks? I think Bob got some tips and other things that you can share.
Well, I do have a couple of things I'd like to say. You talk about end-of-life planning. I kind of feel that that's like filing your tax returns. But the problem is you don't know the date that you have to file them. So you just keep going, yeah, that's a really good idea, but I don't have time today. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. So you have to get it. You have to get in. You got to get it in gear and do it. The other thing I wanted to say was from our friend Melissa, who's a T-Mug member and consultant who has a lot of seasoned customers. And she said, you can pass along my advice that we will all need to practice our checkout drills before we log out of the human interface permanently. So, yeah, we need to get this done and get it ready.
I think that's good advice. Chris, do you have something?
Yeah, I had a dear old friend at Stanford, a professor named Edwin Bridges, who was privileged to have coffee with almost 3 or 4 times a month for a number of years before I retired. And he was an expert on retirement. And he said, the key to the whole thing is if we knew the date we were going to check out, it would make the whole process a heck of a lot simpler.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd go, I really don't have to work that long. It's time, because I know where the door closes on me. I have always played with this fantasy in my head of finding an app that will clear my digital legacy. Like, I want to be signed out of a bunch of accounts. Not that I'm doing anything nefarious in those accounts. It's just I want to be signed out of those accounts. Social media, things like that. And I thought, couldn't we set up a system where I put all that information in, and it's like a dead man switch on an engine, that unless I respond to it every couple of months, it will kick in and throw the dead man switch, and all of those accounts will go away. And I thought that would be a great service. I don't have the technology to do it, but I would sign up for it and, pay a fee to be able to have that. And as long as, I got email from them and they say, please check back in, we want to make sure you're still alive. And so I was looking for apps that were end-of-life apps, end-of-life planner apps, and ran into this one called Trigger. And I opened it up and I looked at it, and it looks like there are that's what it does. It checks in with you every couple of months. Now, I don't know what it does as consequences because I haven't signed in and signed everything up on there. But from the narrative around it, it's like, we'll contact you, and we'll contact you multiple times. And if over a couple of days of not responding multiple times in multiple ways, we're going to take action on whatever you've asked us to take action on. So, but I haven't gotten that far into the app, but it seems like I would find it useful.
Perhaps we have some listeners or viewers on YouTube who have more experience with Trigger, and good or bad, and they could leave feedback for us on the YouTube account in the comments.
That'd be great. And I might continue the sign-up process just to see what the end game is for what it can do, and bring that up next week or next episode that we do. Yeah, so I finally found what I thought was the app that I always wanted to find, something that would stop all the spam, that would do all that. Because if my emails get turned over to my son, and again, there's nothing nefarious about it, I sure would like to cut off a lot of the stuff that I normally get. There's no reason for them to keep doing that. And I can check out of my social media accounts with that process. But I'll look into it. I didn't have time to look into it today, but I finally found something that I thought was what I'd been dreaming of. So let's wrap it up for this episode. Our next live episode will be on Wednesday, February 19th at 9 p.m. through YouTube, where you can watch this crew at youtube.com/@oldmacgang, all one. You can always pick up the podcast or video later if you missed the live show. Share it with your friends and with your Mac user groups. Our music bed is from Philip Gross, Marrakesh, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. For more information about this podcast and others, you can look to thepodtalk.net. All one combined, thepodtalk.net. Thanks for our group, Gary, Chris, Peter, and Bob. And thanks you for being part of the Old Mac Gang. See you next time.